New to oil and gas? How to transition into heavy industrial as a superintendent. So this video is going to be super awesome. I actually get asked this all the time. This is a direct question. The next 10 videos generally on this YouTube channel will be direct questions, and the other 10 are direct questions to the Google search engine. And I love answering questions. And so basically the person that asked this was trying to figure out, hey, if I'm a commercial superintendent, what do I need to know to go into industrial? And it's a really neat topic. I've had that same challenge and seen both worlds, and I'm about to give you some advice that I think you'll find helpful, and then you add your advice, your wisdom to it, merge both of our stuff together, and hopefully you'll enjoy the video enough to give some likes, subscribe to the channel. But that's what we're going to cover right now. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. Now, this topic is really interesting to me. So when we talk about commercial, we are talking about scheduling systems and project management systems and, best practices that apply to both industries, right? So if we're looking at industrial, if you look at how do you plan and schedule these, they're a little bit different, but fairly the same. Project management, a little bit different, but fairly the same. But I do want to give you two different perspectives, right? So typically in commercial, whether it's civil and horizontal or it's vertical construction, I usually imagine vertical buildings with a site, obviously, right? And one of the things that I really like is that typically on a site, you have a really nice, and I'm going to call it path of construction, but path of construction really applies right here, okay? You have a really nice path of construction. Your exterior has a really nice path of construction. Then when you're in the floors, let me just take like level 2, for example, and pull that out, okay? You're going to break that into zones, right? And there's a path of construction. It's very zone heavy with different trade partners and very disconnected from company to company, meaning that there aren't very many turnkey operations. Everything that you do will literally be a different trade partner for the most part. That thanks to Arrow One and Frederick Taylor. That may be a good or a bad thing, but the bottom line is you are flowing through zones with different trades in geographical areas. In an industrial setting, and especially with oil and gas, and I'm apologizing to you for my bad sketching skills, but you might have a massive tank over here, heavy stainless steel piping or whatever type of piping they're putting in, lots of hydronic systems, you might have exhaust, you've got piping running everywhere through here, here's a skid. It is very systems heavy, MEP heavy, equipment heavy, and the path of construction isn't so much, oh, I've got a clean path around the site and a clean path around the exterior and the interior, but here, let me use a different marker. You may need to install this retention tank and then move up through the piping assembly and then come over here and install this skid. Then because of the 3D coordination, now you're ready for this other set of pipes, installing them, whatever they may be. And path of construction is systems based. When I'm looking at this, I really like to see, what is my functional area, right? And then what are my different phases? So I'll put a P here. And then what are my different zones? So I'm going to write Z, and I can see my path based on that breakdown. But for an industrial project, I really look at it like they do on the flow diagram. So whether that's for HVAC, for hydronic piping, or if it's your single line diagram or one line diagram, you remember on these MEP one lines, you see how the equipment, whether it's electrical gear or it's actually equipment in the plumbing or the hydronic piping system or the HVAC system, how it all flows and ties together. Typically, the path of construction will run through your flow diagrams and your single line diagrams according to how the systems are put together. So it's a very systems-based focus. This is very zone focused, but either way, you have a path of construction. POC is also point of connection, so be careful because you'll have lots of points of connection over here. But let's talk about some of the differences here that I think will really help you out and how you transition. Okay, so number one, get past my presentation skills and get the content, because this is good stuff right here. Please, I'm asking, and obviously I appreciate your help. The key here is you will, in a commercial project, not default to prefabricating everything. People have said that and use that as a default, and a lot of those companies are out of business. Strategic prefabrication, when it makes sense, is the best way to do it. So in a building, I remember a time when the underground, feeders underground in the electrical room in the basement, it was a bottleneck. So we literally prefabricated everything for this under electrical slab assembly for all of the conduit and literally craned it in place. Your overhead MEP is an easy one. Overhead corridor racks, maybe the exterior. Any of the areas that are bottlenecks in a commercial project will be considered for prefabrication. In an industrial setting, most likely you're modeling and prefabricating and kitting into spools, into prefabricated assemblies, the entire project. So this is a much larger scale. And you have to make sure that this coordination is done before you go out and do the work in the field. That's why a lot of times they use advanced work packaging, because you literally can have your design and engineering work packages and your construction work packages progress through, including the entire prefabricated spool or assembly, and bring that out to the site like it's a kit of parts, like it's IKEA or like it's Lego. And it's absolutely fantastic. So you as a superintendent transitioning are going to get to learn how to embrace the virtual design and construction world with advanced BIM methodologies, pre-coordinating and prefabricating and bringing it out as a kit of parts. The other thing that I want to say is that yes, engineers are involved in commercial projects, but engineers are the primary for oil and gas projects. It's not architectural heavy, if that's the way to say it. I think I said that wrong, but you'll want the skills to know mechanical, electrical, plumbing, fire protection, process piping, any of these systems from an MEPF standpoint, and to really be connected to the engineering of these mechanical, electrical, and plumbing systems. So that means that we're switching from an architectural, structural based focus to really digging into MEP. You almost become an MEP superintendent. So I do want you to understand that. It's a lot less about aesthetics and a lot more about function for the infrastructure of the assembly or the building. The other thing is because, and I remember working, I can't tell you where I worked, but some of the things that you find on an oil and gas project or other types of industrial projects are very, very scary. I'll never forget in one orientation, the person said that if you hit this pipe in this active facility, it will either kill you or you for the rest of your life will wish you were dead. That's how painful it is. And then obviously we've seen the safety videos in industrial plants and industrial construction that are much, much worse than what we deal with here. I'm not making fun of commercial construction. I love this. But it's much more dangerous here. And so safety compliance is at a whole other level. People criticize me here, Jason, we don't need zero tolerance. You'd better have zero tolerance. I don't care how you do it. Whether it's toxic or happy, you cannot tolerate a lack of safety in this world. So it's time to up our game. In addition, so that kind of goes with everything. And from a QC standpoint, these systems have got to not only be assembled right, but be functional. You know, I hate to say it, but if you install a sheet of drywall and something goes wrong, it's not going to affect anything else other than the aesthetics, maybe some mold, you know, maybe it doesn't look great, right? But you do something wrong here, there's a leak, it's not pressure tested properly, you're affecting the overall system. And that brings me to the last thing. And this is not a lecture, by the way. I love all of the superintendent homies out there. We're always having to pull people into commissioning. Yeah, I get the structure, but what about the commissioning? This is all about commissioning systems. You've got to begin with the end in mind and know, hey, I'm not just putting in pipe, I'm not just putting in skids, I'm not just installing equipment, I'm not just building a tank over here. I am literally putting together a system which has communications, it has electrical, other low voltage systems, the piping itself. I could just keep going on dry side, wet side, and you've got to look at it from that systems perspective, which means you're going to have to mold out of simply simply an assembly mindset into a systems mindset. So hopefully this gives you a little bit of a guide for how to transition. But I tell you what, you're going to do well over here because you're up to the challenge. Just find some of these guidelines. I'll put this into a list. We'll put it in the description below. Reach out if you need any help. But boy, you're going to have some fun because I love systems. I love the path of construction. I love equipment. I love commissioning. Who wouldn't? This is a great world to be in, and I love it when we're safe. So there's nothing wrong with this, but we are going to step up our game. I hope you've enjoyed this video. On we go.